Welcome to Boschendal and welcome to a brand new series that celebrates the spirit of entrepreneurship in South Africa. It's Boschendal The Nicolas Red Blazer series where I'll be meeting together with Maps Maponyane a selection of South African entrepreneurs who've had their tough times but also their good times and have a wonderfully inspiring story to tell. We'll be sharing a few glasses of the Nicolas over the course of the conversations we'll be having around the country with a unique collection of people, and we kick off with one of my favorites. She's a social entrepreneur, somebody who's shared a stage with Barack Obama, addressed the United Nations, and spent time in refugee camps in places like Syria and Afghanistan. She's an extraordinary woman. She's got an equally extraordinary story to tell. So let's say hello to Catherine Constantinides. And so, from the wide-open natural beauty of Boschendal to the suave elegance of the Houghton Hotel in Johannesburg, and suave and elegance is the order of the day, because not only is Maps Maponyane joining me, as promised, but a very dear friend of mine, Catherine Constantinides, who's got a CV that sounds suspiciously made up when you start reading it, but I assure you she has done everything on it. And more. Catherine, lovely to see you. Welcome to the Red Blazer series.
Thank you so much. So lovely to be here.
It's great to have you. Great to have Mr. Maponyane as well. Great to have a bottle of Boschendal's The Nicolas. And great to be having a conversation with you, Catherine, because you, for me, are such an important part of South Africa's entrepreneur story. We tend to think, well, entrepreneurs must be Elon Musk's and inventing all sorts of new and crazy and wild things. But social entrepreneurship is just such a vital space in South Africa.
It really, really is so important. And I think a country such as ours, where the inequality is so huge, the challenges are so great, there's an opportunity to really find innovation in a way that can really impact society. And I think that when you are passionate about something that you see that is wrong, an injustice, it might be an environmental issue, a social issue, it could be something that you want to fix. There's an opportunity to become a social entrepreneur who's invested in looking at the long-term impact that you can bring about.
I can see a smile. That strikes a chord with you, doesn't it, Maps?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a big fan of Catherine's work for a very long time, and everything you've done with Miss Earth, but also everything that you've done speaking all over the world about the passionate causes that you have, and about the environment, about helping people who don't have voices. And I think that's what makes this such a special conversation. And what I've been looking forward to the most in this Red Blazer series, our episode with you, is just being able to speak about social entrepreneurship and how it doesn't all have to always be this, super profitable sense of entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship that empowers people to not only take care of, their immediate environment or surroundings, but the environment as a whole and people beyond themselves.
Thank you.
And you've done this all over the world. I think this is where Maps and I get slightly jealous, because we think we've done some pretty cool stuff really in our lives. And then we bump into Catherine. What have you been up to, Catherine? Oh, I was just at an event with Barack Obama, Dan. I was just speaking to the United Nations, Maps. It's highly annoying, but it's the kind of thing. You have shared a stage with Barack. You have spoken to the United Nations. You've got an extraordinary voice, Catherine.
Thank you. I'm privileged. I never thought growing up that my voice would be the thing that really allowed me to see the world and to experience things. And for me, the most important thing, and the reason that I have those platforms available to me, is only because the things that I see that are unjust, the things that I've experienced, I've truly lived those experiences. So it's really about immersing myself in the communities where I work, understanding absolutely everything about the cause that I see and connects with me and moves me and ensures that I don't sleep, because all I can do is think about it. So when something really connects with you, and for me, there have been a few of those things, but mainly around human rights, climate change, the environment. I really, really have tried to use the voice I have and the platform I have to drive those issues so that we can see policy change, so that we can see those issues making the agenda, where they really are just unsexy and things that people don't want to talk about, so they never make it to the agenda. So for me, the important thing is to be able to use my platform and voice, and that has allowed me the privilege of those international stages and the places that I get to travel.
Actually, interestingly enough, on that, I'd love to know, why would you give up the multi-million-dollar advancement deal that you got from Givenchy and Louis Vuitton and all those other amazing brands to do future fashion campaigns and the fashion shows, and every other opportunity that you've had to become the change agent that you're so affectionately known as now?
I think it's so important to understand that you're answerable to yourself. Your conscience talks to you. And at night when you go to bed, you have to be able to be comfortable with the person that you fall asleep with in your head. It is important for me that I'm true to what I want to do. And changing the world around me, it may sound insane and ridiculous, but I really believe in the power of an individual to make and bring about incredible change. And through the work that I've done, I've been privileged to see that change happen, to see how fundamentally one person who believes in something and continues to push on that cause and continues to show up for a people, for a nation, can make a difference. And so through my work, working across the length and breadth of South Africa, across our continent, and definitely around the world, I'm so privileged to live the life that I always believed was possible, even when everyone said, you're absolutely crazy, or you can never make a life doing that, or I'm never gonna be rich. I know that. I'm never gonna have extra money to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But I have people in places that I never even knew existed that hold me accountable for their hope, for the light in their lives. And for me, that's far greater than having international stages to do those kinds of things. But it's really important. I believe in our country and I believe in building our nation from the grassroots up. And that needs an investment of time and energy and commitment on the ground. And if you don't ask, you could say, well, who's going to do it? And we can point fingers at who should do it. But if I don't stand up and say, well, I will do it, then those communities will still be where they are 20 years from now. And I can't sleep at night knowing that I could do something small, even if it was a little contribution. I don't know if that community will bring about the next Nelson Mandela or the next Barack Obama. But what if my time in a space really allows somebody to turn a corner in their own life and journey and switches on the light that lives inside of them and allows them to see their own greatness. And for that moment, they may see themselves as more than their circumstances. And what if that person goes on to change the world?
You have an infectious passion, which I love about you. It really is contagious.
Absolutely.
And I think it stems partly from who you are, and we both know you particularly well, but it also comes from your own lived experience. And it's hard to imagine the Catherine Constantinides sitting beside me right now as somebody trekking through a refugee camp in Afghanistan. But you've done exactly that. You have seen people who have nothing, who are desperate, who are devoid of hope. And I have a strong feeling that that is a big part of what fuels you to be as strong in your belief as you are about changing people's lives.
Absolutely. It hurts to see those things, but I have the capacity and the shoulders to hold the weight of that pain. And so with that comes the responsibility to do something with the stories that I've lived, the stories of being in Afghanistan, walking the mountains of Kabul, working in Western Sahara and with the Sahrawi people who still do not have access to their own home, who are living as refugees or are living in the occupied territory of Western Sahara, living in those refugee camps on and off for the past 10 years. For me, that gives me an understanding second to none. All of the things that I know and I advocate and work towards, it's not something that I read about, that somebody told me, or that I watched on TV. It's a lived experience of having been on the ground with those people, understanding what it's like to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, living here in Kliptown in Johannesburg, in Soweto, getting up at that time of the morning to go and fetch water, not having access to sanitation facilities, and then your child still has to walk 10 kilometers to get to the nearest school. I have lived in those spaces with these people, and these people have stories that must be told. And I think that our communities are filled with unsung heroes that don't get the credit that they really deserve. And the media is filled with really highlighting many of our challenges and many of the people that are not role models for our children. But we have to understand that there are amazing people in communities across our nation that really are the cogs of the wheel that turn this nation. And we need to be there to support them in order for us to move our country forward.
We've been very lucky to have worked together on a couple projects, different community projects. You're still the only person I've ever called saying, I'd love to get in touch with you and sit down and have a coffee over this community project idea, and you've said, sorry, I'm going to be in Afghanistan then. But you've still continued to come back and keep doing that. In fact, on your birthday, to celebrate that, you got a bunch of your friends and you went and did a community project. How did that go?
That was fantastic. So every year for my birthday, I look for a community or a school where children have not celebrated their birthday. So what we don't understand is that a huge giant cake can bring about the biggest smiles on children's faces. Children that have never celebrated a birthday with cake. Yeah. So can you imagine? And so for my birthday each year, I find a school or a community, and I try to have a giant birthday party where they get to celebrate their birthdays on that day. I'm lucky because that's what I get to do for my birthday. But you have 700 to 800 children that are celebrating a birthday. And they get to sing and they get to draw pictures and really just celebrate in the way that every child should have the privilege of doing. This year, we were able to celebrate with 1,200 children over 2 days. And it was just so spectacular. Some children ate donuts for the first time. Cake for the first time. The cake was everywhere, but it was absolutely wonderful. And I think if we can just give children moments of hope in a country at a time that's unprecedented, where people are really suffering, where people need just kindness and hope and love, we are able to touch that life forever. And I think with so many of the projects that we've done, sometimes we go into a school or into a community and only once do we get to engage with a young life, and only for a period of time. But I know for sure that it's that small moment of opportunity to engage with that life that could possibly really just change that human being's life forever. And we will never know the impact that we have. But if we don't pour ourselves into the things we do, we will never understand how we could have changed the world.
Mm. You tell heartwarming stories, Catherine. I've got goosebumps there. In fact, I think I'm probably going to need a glass of wine to pour that down. I love how engaged you are with and determined to make the best of the environment around you, and that's a nice way to link through to our other guest who joins us, albeit briefly. That's Jacques, our winemaker down at Boschendal. Jacques, it's lovely to see you and to bring you into the conversation ever so slightly. We're talking to somebody for whom the world around her, the environment around her, is so important, and that speaks to you as a winemaker. I know your philosophy is very much focused on ensuring you get the very best out of Boschendal, not just giving us a great glass of wine, but also ensuring that the land that you farm, the terroir, the Boschendal itself, is somewhere that you can be really proud of from an environmental and conservation perspective. Give us a little more on that, if you will.
Yeah, Dan, making wine sustainably at Boschendal, obviously that's a major big focus for us. I just think making wine, we believe in making terroir-driven wines. So for us, it's all about nature. And obviously, I think it starts where you really want to protect everything, nature, the terroir, protecting wildlife. So, yeah, just from our side, I think it started with just clearing off 500 hectares of alien vegetation on Boschendal itself. If I can just tell you what that already did, suddenly some of the streams started flowing out of the mountains, and in fact, they're flowing constantly right through the year. So suddenly we've got 4 major streams just flowing into the river, just from clearing out that 500 hectares of alien vegetation. Of course, what that also does is just protecting the Cape Floral Kingdom, which is the richest kingdom, but also the smallest kingdom. And just by clearing out that alien vegetation, we just once again help that and to restore that as well. And that once again, it helps with the natural bird life, it helps with the animals moving around, and it actually makes it just so much more pleasant going into the vineyards itself as well. Then, being conscious of saving water, we are also being very conscious of saving water in the cellar itself. Every single hose that we use, obviously we need to clean everything after every single production of wine. But every single hose will have like water savers on them as well. And then you've got a beautiful, awesome effluent plant. So 100% of the wastewater that will go down will go through the effluent plant, and we will reuse that, 100% of that. Then something else as well, that obviously being conscious of saving power, 40% of the direct power being used, we basically compensate for that with some solar panels on the Boschendal sell a roof. So once again, we believe it's a mindset. I think it's a mindset for us as a team to protect and to make sure that the environment that we go to when we harvesting grapes or when we're growing grapes is being protected. It makes sense to me as well. So, and then of course, Boschendal itself is all about farm to table. So our own vegetables being grown will be served in the restaurants itself. We've got our awesome black Angus cattle, that will roam on the farm. So just protecting it. And then of course, there's something that I forgot. It's just the grape waste, basically the grape skins and the stalks. So we've got a major big compost heap where we will take that, incorporate that into the system again, and eventually that will go to vineyards if needed to, or to some of the orchards that we've got at Boschendal, just to preserve that. So yeah, it's farm to table, loving nature, and ensuring that the mindset of saving the world or saving the country is there.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Jacques. Lovely to catch up with you. We don't have you with us, sadly, here at the house, but we do, unsurprisingly, for the Boschendal The Nicolas Red Blazer series, have a bottle of the Nicolas. I'm going to pour something, because I suspect that a glass of wine is something you might need occasionally in your life, right, Catherine?
Definitely.
All right. Well, while I pour it, I'm going to ask you to do something for us, and it's probably not going to be very easy, because I'm going to ask you to choose something. I'd like to raise a toast to you and to the journey you've had and the success stories that you've had. And so I'd like one of those success stories, and I'm fascinated to hear which one it will be, because you've had such extraordinary success.
Thank you.
But a story, and the other one a moment ago about your time in Asia was a great example, but something you've done that just for you says success and matches your definition of what that is.
I think that when I look at the work that I've done, I'm grateful for the journey I've walked. It has not been easy. It is difficult. Every single day is hard. The things that you have to face and you have to address are difficult. But I must say, when I look back on my life one day, I have no doubt that the greatest achievement will be being a mom to Matthew. And so I think that, my greatest success will always be him, because I have a young man who is the light of my life and certainly carries the greatest responsibility, where he has to give me up so that I can do greater things in the world, to leave the world a better place for him and generations to come.
Well, I was thinking right now, firstly, my toasts are far too short. And secondly, if I can speak about all those things that I've done and not mention 21 icons, which was, that's when you know your life has been absolutely remarkable. So to you, Catherine Constantinides, and cheers, guys. Absolutely wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So good.
All right, so this is the Nicholas, as Jacques mentioned, and we drink it as a toast, and we look at success. But entrepreneurship, which you will know, Maps, you will certainly know, it's often a lot of lows before you hit those highs, and a huge number of challenges. And I'm imagining social entrepreneurship is exactly the same. For people who are watching this, who are on their own entrepreneurial journey, banging their heads against walls, wondering if it'll ever work out. What are some of the challenges you've been through, the lessons you've learned from those, the patience, the ability to get through those tough times?
I think that there is a side to entrepreneurship, and you will know better than anyone, that you don't always see that side. You're not always told those things first. It is hard, it takes everything from you, and you need to be prepared to put in the work. You need to be the best at your craft. No matter what space or industry you're in, you need to know as much as you can. You need to be constantly learning and growing and challenging yourself. And I think some of the hard lessons I've learned, when I started out, we started our company, I was 16, I was still at school. I didn't know I was a social entrepreneur. I only realized and knew of this term probably about 3 or 4 years later, when Entrepreneur magazine interviewed me and they said, "You're a social entrepreneur." And I said, "Just 1 minute, just explain this to me and then we can continue the interview." And I think understanding that it's fine to fail. In fact, there's such great lessons you learn. You need to be able to fall into a space of growth that makes you uncomfortable, because only when you're uncomfortable constantly will you challenge yourself to move forward. I think understanding who you partner with. If you decide to bring on partners or investors, etc., you have to make sure that your visions are aligned. I think that's crucially important. I've been burnt several times partnering with people who were not the right fit, and I went against my own intuition, where I knew it just didn't feel right, but I did it and I learned my lessons, and really hard lessons. But I think that you have to be passionate as a social entrepreneur. If there's something that you're passionate about changing, do that. Focus on that goal. Never lose sight of what you want to do. I think as an entrepreneur, it's a given. Just never lose sight of what you're trying to do. If you're chasing the profits as an entrepreneur, I think that the profits will come, but you need to know why you're doing something, and you need to constantly keep yourself in check as to what your why is. Social entrepreneurship is a great hybrid of both the business sector and model, as well as the non-profit sector. And I think it is an opportunity for great impact. And in a country such as South Africa, we have incredible examples of social entrepreneurs who are addressing everything from taking medicine into communities where people don't have access to clinics, where we are able to plant food gardens in communities where traditionally they have great soil but no resources. We're able to do maths and science in a way that we can get more children into the technology space. And so we are addressing so many different things in so many different spaces. And these are not traditional NGOs. These are social entrepreneurs who are building a business model that really equates to impact and change.
I think one of the most beautiful things about social entrepreneurship and the work you do is that the profit there is the change you make and the opportunities you create. So I think that's probably one of the most heartwarming things that you're able to do.
Absolutely. And I think that my journey has allowed me to walk a really hard journey, work at understanding so many different dynamics, seeing different things that you don't traditionally see from, when you're in an 8-to-5 job. The success is certainly the impact that you have, the things that you can really calculate and equate change to. But I think that's really also very important to understand that it's not an easy journey. You will have more doors closed in your face than doors that will open. But sometimes you have to learn to also look for the windows that are just ajar. And you have to understand that sometimes we think that we've got to wait for a door to open, but sometimes doors open from the inside out. And I think that we so often have preconceived ideas, and we have to walk our own journey, learning lessons from people around us, but walking a journey and understanding as a social entrepreneur that change is inevitable if you focus on what it is that you want to achieve. And ultimately, my greatest goal is to become redundant and irrelevant in the spaces that I work, because that will then mean that people have access to safe, clean drinking water, that social justice issues have become part of our daily discourse, the narrative, part of the agenda, and we've addressed many of the social ills we see, that education from a quality perspective is something that is the norm, not the exception. So I think if we work towards becoming redundant in the things that we do, we will see a changed society.
It's that vision, I suppose, of a world which has no charity because it doesn't need any charity, and it's still a utopian concept. We're a long way off, but we're getting closer to it thanks to people like yourself, Catherine, and we'd like to give it a tiny little nudge in the right direction. Boschendal have 10,000 Rand for you to pass on to an entrepreneur and entrepreneurial space of your choice, somewhere where you think this can make a real difference. Tough one for you because you work with so many people.
And you're putting me on the spot, let's just...
Look, we did think the Dan and Maps Goes to the Maldives Fund would be fabulous, but we couldn't quite get that past the accounts team. Who do you think would be a great beneficiary of this?
I think I was really inspired by Jacques and what he said, and my passion for sustainability and the environment. So I think that our Kliptown Gogos, I think they would be best. And I think Priscilla could really, really do with that kind of boost. I think it would be really special to be able to give it to them, seeing the sustainability and food security project that they're doing, that I'm privileged to kind of just be a part of in a small way, I think a contribution like this will really, really go a long way and will really support their efforts in a sustainable community here in Kliptown in Johannesburg. So from Boschendal to Kliptown,
awesome.
I think that would be a special community to touch.
Could you tell us a little bit more about exactly the work they do?
They sound like they're a band. I want to get their new album.
They do
Kliptown Goggles.
They do phenomenal work in Kliptown, where they have taken a basic and very simple principle of what can they do to impact their own community right where they are. And Kliptown is one of those really historic spaces and where the birth of our constitution came from. But Kliptown hasn't moved forward in the sense that, unfortunately, the communities in Kliptown and around Kliptown still suffer under immense inequality and poverty. So the Kliptown Goggles was established to set up a food garden that would serve the community. They're able to make a small living from it. The Goggles that are working there are able to do the same. And there's a community center not far away that does remarkable work around recycling, upcycling different items, repairing jeans and turning them into different things, all kinds of wonderful things. So these are a group of women that have said, we have a challenge. What do we do? How do we really upskill ourselves, but provide something for the community? So to the Kliptown Goggles and Priscilla, I think that they would be a great recipient.
Oh, awesome. Catherine, I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, we wish we could have this episode with you so much longer. It's unfortunate as well that people have to keep remembering Catherine Constantinides and the two underachieving friends. I'm sure has been a hit, of course, in conjunction with Boschendal.
Maps says it perfectly, because every time I spend time with you, I go away thinking, I need to do more with my life. I need to be more like Catherine. And I say that genuinely because you are such an inspiring person and you do such extraordinary things. And sometimes I'm not even sure you realise the extent to which you inspire people and the extent to which you make a difference. So to have you on Boschendal The Nicolas Red Blazer series has been an absolute delight. The Kliptown Go-Go's complete this theme of inspiring women on this particular show. So thank you. We're going to finish you off a lovely glass of the Nicolas. But more importantly, we're going to keep watching what you do. We're going to keep being inspired by it. And I think social entrepreneurship is a space in South Africa that's gained some ground. It's had some traction, but there's still a long way to go. And you're a great example of exactly how to get there. So
thank you.
Cheers to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, Catherine.
Thank you.
Cheers, Dan.
There we go. So from myself, Dan Nicholl, and from Maps Maponyane, together with our special guest this week on Boschendal The Nicolas Red Blazer series, social entrepreneur Catherine Constantinides, with an industrial dose of inspiration. Cheers.
Cheers.